horology in the UK. Why should you care? But first, I'm not an expert, contrary to what I said in the previous video. It was a joke, I promise. Right, British watchmaking. It's not sexy as Swiss watchmaking. Oh, it's a Swiss watchmaking. Oh, that was a bit French. Or German watchmaking, based in Glashütte. That's well known. Or even Japanese watchmaking. But British watchmaking, at one point in time, well, Britain was the centre of the watchmaking world. It was. In the 1800s, we were producing 200,000 watches a year at one point, which for the 1800s was massive. The vast majority of the patents for watches were all patented in London. It was amazing. Britain, as well as Switzerland, it was the place for watchmaking. I mean, even Rolex was originally founded here. Wilsdorf and Davies, 1905, before Hans Wilsdorf moved it over to Geneva and was like, no, and a genie whispered in his ear, called it Rolex. Ancient history. But it was a big tragedy. The wartime, it killed the British watch industry. It was quite sad, actually. So, one, it remained very, very stagnant for a long time. Mass production led to lower quality, and even though our small scale watchmaking was still known for high quality, the industry paid the price. And then the wars didn't help either. Our entire watch production capacity either got completely centered on making equipment for the war or just making military watches. Switzerland, however, didn't make the change. They didn't have to produce military watches because they weren't a combatant in the war. By the end of the war, they completely dominated the industry, and the rest is history. Or is it? Because in 2001, Nick and Giles English, they sound like characters in like Downton Abbey or something. But in 2001, Nick and Giles English crash landed in a pea field in France. They were rescued by a man whose surname was Bremont. So they named their company after him. And Bremont, whatever your opinion on Bremont, and we do have a video coming out about the company because I did a tour like two months ago. But the video is going to come at some point. Bremont's making waves. They're now producing and selling 10,000 watches a year. In this financial year, they're aiming for 12,000. A couple of years ago, they opened up a new 35,000 feet or square feet facility. They're doing amazingly. They've even got an in-house caliber now, which for a company that's 22 years old, insane. And now, what's really spectacular is Bremont, for the first time, is going to be showcasing at Watches and Wonders 2024. A British watch brand is going to be showcasing their new novelties alongside Rolex, Patek Philippe, Cartier, Tag Heuer, all of these brands, and that is insane. I mean, their new CEO, I've met him, lovely guy. He looks like an Italian designer, big thick rim, round glasses. He's
just walked out of House of Gucci.
Yeah, like he's just walked out of House of Gucci. His name's Davide. He's a really, really, really interesting guy. But he is the guy that dragged Tudor out of the Dark Ages and designed the Black Bay, for goodness sake. Dragged Panerai out of the Dark Ages and made them the force that they are today. So Bremont, undeniably the biggest watch brand, is now being taken seriously by the big boys. Sure, they've got a long way to go to catch up with some of the big boys, but they're being taken seriously, which when they started, that was unthinkable. They're still using a lot of Swiss movements, a lot of Swiss components, because they're a new company. They simply can't afford to engineer, design all the components yet. But Bremont aren't the only company that are doing cool stuff and raising the bar for this little island in the North Atlantic. There are lots of British watch companies that class themselves as British, but they'll only make the casing and the bracelets and stuff in these islands, and they will get the movements from Switzerland. Mr. Jones is one of those. I think they say designed in the Netherlands, assembled in London with a Swiss movement for their automatic pieces, but they're based out of London and they've only been going for a few years. So when they're over 2 decades old, I'll be interested to see where Mr. Jones are. Another case for this is Christopher Ward. Christopher Ward's a really interesting example. They market themselves as British design with Swiss movements, but they don't just lift out a Swiss movement and go, yep, that's your watch. All you have to do is just look at something such as the bel canto. Well, they've taken an off-the-shelf movement and gone, we can do something cool with this. And they gave it an hour ringer. I can't remember what the specific name for the complication is, but on the hour, every hour, it goes ding! And that's just awesome, the fact that this little British company that a couple of years ago no one was really listening to. Every release, people are taking seriously, people are rushing to buy. Just look at the 12, just look at the bel canto, the new C1 moon phase. It's another British company that people are going, what they are doing is really, really cool. And a couple of years ago, that was genuinely unthinkable. Not to hark on about Christopher Ward, but celebrate their 20th birthday next year. They've helped establish the Alliance of British Watch and Clockmaking, along with Roger Smith and I've talked about Roger Smith before, absolutely incredible watchmaker, obviously very small scale, apprentice of George Daniels, the creator of the coaxial movement, absolutely unbelievable. They have partnered with Fears and Fairer in this enterprise, and the thing that really blows my mind about Christopher Ward is they are being taken so seriously in the watch space now. They actually won an award at the Grand Prix de Horloge de Genève. They won the coveted Petite Aiguille Award. Now, what does Petite Aiguille mean? Other winners of that award include the Breitling Super Ocean Heritage 57 Limited Edition 2, the Bell & Ross BR05 Skeleton, the IWC Portuguese Automatic 40. Honestly, that's a prestigious award. Kodoke have won an award. The Kodoke 2. The Tudor Black Bay Chrono took it in 2007. The Tudor Black Bay Bronze won it in 2016. Well, the Grand Seiko High Beat 36,000 GMT won in 2014. So for a British watch brand to win it, that says a lot about how far British watchmaking has come in about 20 years. Where on earth is it going to be in another 20 years? So it's also worth noting that last year, the top prize at the Grand Prix de Horloge de Genève also had a UK flavour. The top prize was awarded to Max Buser for the MB&F Legacy Machine Sequential Evo. Now, this dude, he won 9 awards. He has won 9 awards at the gphg. But this was the first time he'd won the Aiguille. In his acceptance speech, he made it clear that a gentleman by the name of Stephen MacDonald should have been standing next to him, as it was Stephen MacDonald, a Belfast-based watchmaker, who conceived and designed the watch. Another win for British watchmaking. But there are things happening in the British watch industry. Just look at what George Daniels did, one of the biggest meteoric leaps forward for Omega ever. It's impossible to talk British watchmaking without having a larger talk about Roger Smith. He's a purist of the George Daniels tradition, and he's such a massive name in watchmaking now. Summer 2023, a Roger Smith pocket watch fetched $4.9 million at auction, making it the most expensive British watch ever made. But let's not just hark on about MB&F and Roger Smith, and we've talked about Christopher Ward and Bremont, that's the one. My brain's not working, I'm not very well, guys. Sympathy, give me sympathy. There's watchmaking springing up all across these little islands of ours. I work in Bristol. Just in Bristol, we've got Fears, a really cool little watch brand making luxury watches locally. which is awesome. You drive down the M4 corridor to London. You've got a plethora of watch brands. For example, Fairer, the slightly more budget-friendly version of Fears. I don't think it's
I get the two confused.
Yeah, I get the two confused. We've got Fears and Fairer. We've got very similar designs. Love them both. No disrespect to any of you. Just one's a bit more budget-friendly, one's not. But I love you both. And I've met guys from both of your teams. Everyone's lovely. But I do apologise that I got you confused when I met you. Walked up to the guys from Fairer and was like, oh, I love Fears. So, yeah, got a hat from them anyway, so. Which Terry now has.
Fears is an interesting one. The guy who runs it didn't realise he had a watchmaking
heritage
like that. His grandfather owned it or something. He ended up working for Rolex, left Rolex, and then his mum was like, oh, why don't you restart the family business up? And he was like, oh, what's that?
But Fears, it was re-established by Nicholas Bowman Scargill, the great-great-great-grandson of the founder. Wow! Who was actually an apprentice watchmaker at Rolex in London, when Rolex was in London. He estimates that in less than 10 years, the number of British watch brands has more than doubled to about 75. As I said, watchmaking all over the country.
We've also got Studio Underdog making waves right now.
Thank you very much. That's an amazing point. Studio Underdog. Yes, they're using Chinese movements. Yes, they are using Swiss movements, but they've released 2 watches. Obviously, numerous colours and stuff. They've released 2 watches. There are very few micro brands that have made such big waves in the industry in the past few years as Studio Underdog. No matter what I think of the pricing of their latest O2 series field watch, it's an amazing watch. It's brilliant. It's well loomed. It's stunningly designed. I think it's a bit expensive, but it's an amazing watch, and everything Studio Underdog touches turns to gold without a doubt. One of the biggest things that's changing for the British watch industry is every single year it's growing. There's more people employed by it. It's bringing more money into the economy. Whether all of these companies are using British movements or not, that might come in time. Likely will. They'll start making more and more components. All they need is to slowly grow the supply chain. And pretty soon, people will come to Britain to source hairsprings and balance bridges and rotor weights and all of these things, just like they do with Switzerland, because it has the established industry. Currently, Britain is going through what the Swiss watch industry had to do. And it's growing that industry, establishing those supply chains. And as the amount of people in the industry grow and the amount of money grow and the amount of investment grows, they'll be able to do that. And quite quickly, just look at how far Bremont's come. They now have the ability to make a lot of those components themselves. And honestly, I find that really exciting to think that I'm now living in the heart of probably one of the 4 most important watchmaking nations in the world. And I don't think that's a controversial statement. Britain, Switzerland, Germany, and Japan, I think, are the 4 most important watchmaking nations. I don't think that's controversial. But what do you guys think? That was in no particular order, by the way. I don't think Britain's above Switzerland or anything. There was no order, just the order I thought of them. But what do you guys think? Do you agree with me? Do you think the British watch industry is going through a boom? Or do you think it's sort of a bubble and it's going to bust? Who knows? But I'd love to hear your opinion. But don't forget to like and subscribe. And I've talked about Bremont a lot in this video. And we do have a video coming at some point, possibly next week, I don't know, about my tour of Bremont 2 months ago. So stay tuned for that. And don't forget, guys, watch yourselves.